What is Satyug? Satyug is when the mind is totally centered in the self, the truth. Treta is when the mind is identified with thoughts. Dwapar is the body and Kalyug is sansar. So there is indeed a movement here, and the movement is progressively away from the center. When the mind is closest to the center, you call it, and when the mind is farthest from the center, you call it, which means some of us might be in this moment in Satyug. You are already living in Satyug. It's not as if we are condemned to live all our life in Kalyug. And unfortunately, some of us might be intermittently slipping away to Kalyug. When you are living a truth-centered life, you are living in Satyug. When you are living a world-centered life, you are living in Kalyug. Getting it? That's how we are to comprehend it. These are not spans on the calendar. These are not expanses in chronology. These are simply states of mind. Are you getting it? So, what's the Rishi saying here? He is saying that which originated in Satyug got expanse, manifestation in Treta Yuga, which is right. Because truth originates from the self and then through the poet seers finds expression in language, and language is thoughts, you know. Even if you are extremely meditative, yet language necessitates some degree of thought. Otherwise, you will not be able to speak at all. How will you remember which word to use? Even if you are extremely meditative, even if you are totally centered in the truth, yet you will have to retain some of your memory to express what you are seeing. Right? So when the seers express themselves, they have to maintain a very thin distance from the truth. Otherwise, they will recede into a great blissful silence. Their silence will be wonderful for them, but not useful for the world. And the rishis have students sitting in front of them. Remember, the setting is that of Upanishads. It's a face-to-face conversation. The rishi has to speak because the student cannot relate with the silence of the seer. The silence is beautiful but totally internal. It cannot be transferred or communicated. Only words can be communicated. And words, as we said, necessitate memory, which in turn is thought. Are you getting it? So, what is being actually said here is that which originates from the center finds expression via the seer through thoughts and words. And what's the name of that expression? The name of that expression is the Upanishads. Getting it? So what does Treta stand for here? The expression. The expression that is rooted in Satyug. The silent root in Satyug finds poetic expression in Treta Yuga. That does not mean that the root waited for a few million years to find expression, because we are not talking of calendar events here. We are not dealing in history here. We are dealing in mind here. Clear?
Explained about the uh, time, the yogas is the state of mind. So maybe I am asking this question because I'm not for the first time I have heard this type of definition. So, for example, it is mentioned in our mythological stories that Dasrath in his old life he kept a tapasya for thousands of years and then got Ram. So, and the salvation methods like in Treta there was we have to do yagya, and in uh, Satyug we have to do meditation for thousands of years and so on. So I saw one of your video about Big Bang where you told that time is something that starts from you. Uh, so like this is, can you throw some more light on it? Like I'm not able to get it. When you say that time is something that starts from you, and about the yugas as a state of mind.
See, first thing about mythological stories. In the spiritual world, stories are for kids. They have an importance, and the importance is that when a seeker is not prepared enough, then you entertain or prepare him with stories. You get it? So that's why every religious order or tradition has a lot of stories. Why? Because a lot of people are always immature and unprepared. You cannot give them the bare truth. So what do you give them? You give them stories. You say better stories than nothing. Right? So don't take mythological stories too seriously. While you have to also remember that all mythological stories contain the truth at their center. Yet a story is not just its center. A story is the entire narrative, the entire expanse, the twists and the turns, the entire build-up, the ebb and the flow and the whole thing. And that not really is the truth. That just really is something that keeps you captivated, at the same time also keeps you in the loop that spirals up in a way, an upward spiral. It's a loop that takes you gradually upwards. So that's the whole purpose of stories. So fine. Now about time. It's very straightforward. If nothing changes at all, would you say time has lapsed? So that's what time is. Something that you use to measure change. If within you and without you nothing changes at all, then time stands frozen. And where is it that all the change happens? Mind. Therefore, mental activity is another name for time. If the mind is very restless and change is happening frequently, then you talk of time in a particular way. And if the mind is tranquil and there is not much change, then you talk of time in a different way. Alright? Spirituality is not concerned with changes that you see here and there. So right now what I have said pertains more to your inner time. Now even when your inner time stands still, you could argue that externally things will keep happening, though even that can be contested. You see, without any change happening, even the clock would cease to move. Some change has to happen somewhere, otherwise in fact the very movement of the clock is the change. But you need not go into that because that will become a little too technical. Just think of the inner world here. Here time is all about your inner state. So always look at time in that way.
The way in which we define time in physical world and in spiritual world, they are different.
They are not really different because the spiritual world comes from the physical world. But to begin with, you think of or try to understand the inner world. There are no two different worlds. It's not as if the inner world and external world are different and hence have different rules and different concepts of time. Though that has been said at some places. They talk of chronological time and psychological time. But even that distinction is arbitrary. But useful. To begin with, it is useful to just look at the psychological aspect of time.
So currently there is one more myth which is going on and which is claimed by a very famous concurrent guru. So in that definition he defines these 4 yugas as a movement of sun across the galactic center, and when the sun is nearest to that galactic center there are Satyugas and Treta yugas, and when it is farthest, because it is an ecliptical movement, so when it is farthest it is Kalyug. I simply laughed at that, but there are millions of people who believe in this model of Satyuga, Kalyuga and all that as galactic distance between sun and galactic center of Milky Way. So can you will you speak something on that, sir?
I wouldn't have wanted to end it on this. What do I say? I'm not used to speaking much on extreme foolishness.
But sir, this is affecting
I know.
millions.
I know. I feel helpless about that. But what do I do? Can only say what is the truth and put the reality in front of you. What do I do if they command the resources and everything else? What do I do if they are the ones having the reach to make their nonsense penetrate every home, every gullible mind? What do I do?